Hi, Victoria.
Hi, are you
Hi,
Howie?
I'm Howie. I'm the other Howie.
The other Howie, hi.
Hi. And we usually start at 7 or give a couple of a minute or two. And I will introduce you. I have the text and I just shortened it a little bit so I don't blather. Um, and then are you familiar with the way the thing unfolds? We usually have 45 minutes of a sit, and then we could take a break, or I could do announcements, and if you want to ask questions, and then we end at 8:30.
Okay.
So, um, and if you're uncertain about anything, just I'm here. I'm here for you. So
Okay. Yeah. After the sit, I mean, it's you tell me if that's the time you want to do announcements or not, you know.
I think it's best because this
Okay.
will usually you can take a second to readjust. And we prefer to do announcements because we wait for the end, people may have left.
Okay.
So,
That works for me.
and I do want to do the building a foundation of love.
Oh,
I'm going
thanks.
to mention that for you. And I just wrote, it's at 37 Bartlett Street, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I'm going to put all this stuff in the chat so people can get to register.
Thank you. That's fantastic.
All right, looking forward to hearing and participating. Okay, so I'm just going to mute myself, and I'll start about 7 and then go from there. Hi, everybody. This is Howie Gelman, aka the other Howie. Howie Cohn is not participating tonight, but we have a fabulous substitute, which I will introduce in a moment. I thought we'd just take another minute. Usually people kind of get here, not necessarily straggle, but let's just wait a minute more. It looks like people are just joining us as I speak. It's good to see everybody. All right, then. Everyone, shake your head or nod your head if you can hear me. I just assume you can. Good. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce our guest teacher today. Um, Victoria Cary is a Dharma teacher and leader who co-founded the San Francisco Black Indigenous People of Color Insight Sangha and is one of its core teachers. She loves the Dharma and is interested in supporting people in their practice by focusing on integrating Dharma into everyday life. I'm just going to take a second and mute some folks who are coming in, and sometimes they come in with their mics on. Sorry about that. Um, Her identity as a queer, biracial Black woman informs her approach to teaching the Dharma. She has been practicing and studying insight meditation since 2006, participating in numerous retreats, including 3-month silent retreats at Insight Meditation Society and in Nepal. Her practice has also been informed by volunteering for 3 years with Zen Hospice. She has completed Community Dharma Leader Training in 2016 and was authorized to teach in 2020 from Spirit Rock. I want to welcome you to Mission Dharma, Victoria.
Thanks so much, Howie. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria. Good to see faces. A couple that I know. Hey, Mary. Hey, Noemi. Yeah, hi. The last time I was at Mission Dharma, I was at Mission Dharma in the city. And this week, I usually live in the East Bay. I do live in the East Bay, but this week I'm in San Francisco, in Bernal, hanging out with a dog. It's fun. Oh, so I'm really happy to be here, and I want to start orienting us to our practice. I'm on maybe a little kick today. This is my third group today. And so this is the orientation that I've been guiding people in. So this is the question I'm going to drop in. What's the kindest way you can meet yourself at this moment? What's the kindest way you can meet yourself at this moment as we're moving into our practice? And for some of you, that might mean shifting your posture to a wholly different one, like lying down. What a concept. For some of you, it might be standing up if you've been sitting all day. For some of you, it might just be adjusting or grabbing that blanket. And we'll settle in. I'll do a little guidance, and then we'll be in. I'll be silent until the bell rings. So yeah, inviting you into practice, inviting you into yourself, into meeting yourself with some kindness today. So, I like to start with noticing how things are internally, and maybe noticing how things are in your environment externally. This is a way to arrive, not having to do anything, just checking out what things are like in there. It can be supportive to close your eyes or have a soft gaze. And as we settle in and notice how things are, this is really when we can start to notice what would be supportive to tend to tonight. What meditation way of being with ourselves would be the most kind, right? There's all sorts of meditations we can do. So as we settle in this way, checking out how things are, maybe there's a natural landing with an object, like with a sound, a natural landing where it's easy, or with the breath, or with a touch point. Or maybe you're noticing there's some tenderness from being a human on the planet at this time, and you want to send yourself some kindness. Really tend to your heart, to your body, to your mind. And so choosing a place to rest that's easy today. Like easy and accessible, reachable, gentle, kind. And only you know this for you. So I gave 4 different options: the breath, sounds, a contact place or touch point, or loving kindness. And maybe there's another practice that popped into the mind, and you can do that. And what supports all practices, I think, is letting the body soften, letting the mind soften, Sometimes we come into practice so rigid, maybe from our day, but also maybe from how we're holding practice. So really inviting a softening. If you hold tension in the jaw, soften. Maybe the shoulders, dropping them, letting our bellies hang. Noticing our upper back, and as we hold tension in between the shoulder blades. Sometimes it's just a little, like a slight letting go. It can really support our practice. Same with the arms, upper arms, hands, legs. In a soft, receptive, open way, we can tend to and be with our direct experience, moment to moment. Resting our attention, practicing where it's easy, practicing with what would be the kindest thing for us in this moment. For this day, for this mind, for this body, for this heart. And if at any time there's tightness in the mind or in the body, inviting softening again. And often when we begin, the mind is busy. And we include that, future, past, fantasy, it's not a problem. We notice, include it, meet it with care, and then rest again where it's easy, where our practice is feeling accessible in this moment, to this mind, to this heart, to this body. And we'll practice in this way until the bell rings. Thank you for your practice. I think we have a couple of announcements now, maybe.
Yes. I just want to have a few things to say. First, this Saturday, Victoria is going to be leading I'm losing my I'll just read it so I don't have to improvise. This Saturday on March 16th, there's going to be a half-day meditation retreat called Building a Foundation of Love. It is a half-day meditation retreat for BIPOC folks with Victoria Cary. Join us for this BIPOC-centered half-day of practice and connection as we lay groundwork for love, compassion, and joy in our lives. This will be a morning of meditation and practice discussion, in a supportive community space. Whether you are new to the Dharma or have an established practice, this event is a space for BIPOC individuals to practice, share experiences, and deepen in their understanding of the teachings. It's going to take place at the San Francisco Buddhist Center, that's 37 Bartlett Street in San Francisco, from 9 to 11. And I have included this information plus a link to register in the chat. If you are watching this on YouTube and you can't get access to the chat, just go on to the Mission Dharma website, or read the letter that you got, the email you got today, and that information is there. So thanks. Sorry, I muffed the beginning of that. Also, I just want to mention briefly that on Sunday, March 24th, Howie is going to be leading an online day-long through Spirit Rock. So that's going to be called Calming the Restless Mind, an online day-long with Howie Cohen. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's Sunday, March 24th. That information is also in the chat. I've included it there already. You can click on that. Both these things have a cost, and you can look at the information about how much that is. And if you are on YouTube, you will find that information also on the email. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, I want to talk about Dana briefly. Dana is a bedrock of our practice. Dana keeps this going. Dana is, it's the way we show our gratitude and appreciation for Howie, who is our teacher, and for all the wonderful teachers who come in and sit in his seat, metaphorically, to help lead us in an appreciation of the Dharma. So I have included that information in the chat. That information is also available, and there is a recommended amount, but anything that you can provide would be great. I try to do that, and also volunteering is also another wonderful way to help us stay strong. So please do follow up on that, and thanks for your attention. And now back to you, Victoria.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. Oh, so who took the instructions to heart and checked in and saw what needed a little attention or kindness and maybe changed how they normally practice? Did anyone do anything differently? Our habits can be strong, huh? This is how I meditate. I'm not going to meditate in any other way. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So do take care of your bodies if you need to. I'm going to keep talking, and I really want to open it up right now, specifically for questions about practice, and then I'll give a little talk after. But anything that you notice in your practice that or any places where there's questions or stuckness or like, oh, this is new, or this is like this thing that just is always there and I don't quite know how to meet it. Or sometimes what the question boils down to is, am I doing it right? So, you've all maybe been with Howie for a while, so you know all the answers, but just in case there's something new or you want a different teacher's perspective, I got you. You can put it in the chat. If you're on camera, you can raise your physical hand. If you're off camera, you definitely need to use the reaction button. Yeah, Stephanie, hi.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you. I want to say I really appreciated that instruction at the beginning, because I realized after hearing, meeting where you are with kindness, that I was rushing straight from, having been at work and just like in this mode of like, gotta sit down, gotta do the meditation. And so hearing that allowed me to just take a moment, get my blanket, eat something, and just be able to, that really helped me be able to just be here instead of still being in that place of like rushing to, to do from doing the last thing to doing the next thing. And I felt that really helped, or I should say the practice that I experienced was, it was easier to get to the place of just be here now.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And thank you for sharing that and for taking care of yourself. We have these busy lives where we're rushing. I had such a rushy day today. And I got to notice, oh, this is what's rushing like. And it's such a funny experience in traffic. like like that sense of rushing and you're like going 2 miles an hour. Yeah. Cracks me up. Any other questions or reflections about practice before I do a little Dhamma sharing? Okay, you can always drop things into the chat. I think I'm gearing up a little bit. Howie and I and Aaron Treat are going to be teaching at IMS in about a week. On the 30th, 31st, 2nd. So sometime at the end of this month. It's hard to track. And there's love in the title. So that's what I'm like feeling out. And I went, so if any of you were with me on Sunday night, you might hear some repeat. That's my disclaimer. So I went to a conference over the weekend. Harvard Divinity School had a Buddhist conference. Was anyone there? Did anyone tune in online? Yeah, so they had all these amazing keynote speakers that you could just listen to for free from all over the world. One of my favorites was from South Korea. And really just, I don't know, it shifted something in me. It's so wonderful to hear from our beloved teachers that we come back for again and again. And it's also wonderful to hear from teachers that we're not exposed to as much, even different lineages, right? Like we're in this insight lineage. And the teachers, I don't think there was one insight teacher at this conference, now that I think about it. It's like, oh, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. So one of the sparks things that like just sparked my curiosity was this teacher Kwan Lao, who is in Thich Nhat Hanh's lineage, and he was talking about the Four Noble Truths. And specifically, the thing that sparked my curiosity was this first noble truth, which, if you've been in this scene, even for a little bit, you probably know this one, right? That there is suffering, right? And then more than that, he gave this invitation into investigating suffering by holding it with respect. By holding it with respect, like respecting our suffering. And what do you do when you respect something? And so for these, I've been teaching a lot in the last few days, and so I ask people, like, what does that mean to you when you respect something or someone? And there's like such, like, some people have just such varied, as you can imagine, varied reactions. So I'd love to invite you to put in the chat, like, what respecting, like, someone or something or yourself, or what it feels like to be respected means to you in a sentence or two, if you would. And then I'm going to keep talking about it. And one of the ways that the theme that's been coming up as I've been doing this investigation with different communities is respect as an act of love. Like there's this piece around love in respect, when you respect something or someone. And so what if that's how we held our suffering or the stress of life? What if we held it with love and care and respect? Like, what do we often do with it? And, we've been practicing for a while, maybe, and still maybe we dismiss or ignore our suffering, right? So someone put in the chat, respect means to listen, to really pay attention, to care. So this is what respect means to this person. Listen, really pay attention, to care, to give deference to attend to, right? What if we did that with our suffering? What if we attended to it, gave deference to it? Someone else put, acknowledge that we can improve through its wisdom. Acknowledge that we can improve through its wisdom. The example I've been giving is that, it's spring. I'm trying to get in shape because I have a hike. I'm going on a backpacking trip this summer. And so I've been doing things like trying to run and go on long hikes. And my body was like, hey, Victoria, you should really stretch. And the mind was like, stretching. And the body's like, no, you should really stretch. And I ignored it. I ignored the suffering that was in my body, even though it was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then what happened? Like, my back went out because, like, things got contracted, right? And so that's what can happen when we ignore the suffering in our minds and our hearts or in our bodies. Like, it can get worse. It can go from just a whisper to like laying you out, So other folks put in the chat to have a sense of admiration for it, or admiration for someone, or admiration for our suffering, to take it seriously, to listen, to abide with, treat those as I wish to be treated. I love all these respects, is holding myself in high enough self-esteem to be able to allow myself to view my suffering with love. holding myself in high enough esteem to be able to allow myself to view my suffering with love. And how often do we forget how to meet ourselves when we're suffering, right? How often do we forget to just pause for just a moment in our suffering? I think it's just an interesting kind of way in, especially, if our suffering is coming up and through ways that like are a little, I don't know, tricky or hidden. Sometimes it like comes in sideways, and we don't quite recognize it right away. And then if you're like me, what happens when I don't recognize my suffering is like often I'm suffering, I'm in something, and then I'm hard on myself, right? Like I'm just like, oh, Victoria, you should have, or I'm much less now, but once in a while it still pops up, And so our practice invites us to get still long enough to check out, like, oh, what's actually happening? What's actually happening in this moment? So that we can do all these things that show respect to ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our hearts. And so that we can do what? So we can learn. So we can learn about the nature of our suffering. And we can learn then and lean into the second noble truth around the cause of suffering. And so we can know for ourselves what happens when we push away something or when we hold on to something, right? We're talking about suffering today. So like sometimes like that's the reaction, like, oh, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it, And like, to me, loving kindness is the antidote in some way to this pushing away. So there's this one sutta that says, I think the Buddha was talking to monks and says, if just for the time of a finger snap, a monk produces a thought of loving kindness, just that quick, a thought of loving kindness, develops it, gives attention to it, such is rightly called a monk. And so for us, that monk, we can put in a practitioner, right? Practitioner. And just in that amount of time, the thought of loving kindness comes, we develop it and give it some attention. We can be called a practitioner. So I'm bringing this particular quote in so we can interrupt our ideas of what a practitioner is, of what it means to be practicing, of what, or maybe a good practitioner is, right? I think one of the things that's very important to me is expanding our definition of what practice looks like, can look like, how we get in there, right? For us to be creative in our practice. Because if we're not, we can get really rigid. Did anyone notice coming into practice, like anything tight? And when I said soften, like something relaxed? Did anybody? Yeah, right? So often we're coming into and going through our days with tightness in the physical body and in the mental, like in the mind and in the body. And that rigidity can get in the way of us accessing like the truth of the way things are, or accessing a place of like rest that we might have access to, or accessing what actually needs to be attended to. Like we get stuck in these grooves, you know, and this practice is really helping us learn how to respond to ourselves, our suffering, others' suffering, in ways that don't do harm or in ways that are kind, right? So I'm going to drop in a couple of other different ways that the Buddha talks about this, about love, about respect. So the Buddha says, there are, O monks, these 6 principles of cordiality that create love and respect and conduce to helpfulness, to non-dispute, and to concord, to unity. What 6? So in the sutta, it's about community, you know, and how to have love and respect within community. And I think too, it's like I always like to look at things like how we are with ourselves, how we're in community, or how we commune with ourselves, with our hearts and minds. And so the sutta goes on to say, here a monk, okay, we'll say a practitioner, here a practitioner maintains bodily acts of loving kindness, both in public and in private, towards other monastics, right? Towards other practitioners, towards other people, other human beings. This is a principle of cordiality that creates love and respect. And so we can check out our hearts and our minds and see if like there's if the bodily acts that in public and in private, both like, yeah, towards others, and also like, you know, caring for ourselves, like even like brushing our teeth or eating, right? Like sometimes I find it so hard to feed myself sometimes. Anybody else? Like getting a meal together, it's difficult sometimes, right? You know, and sometimes, yeah, people act one way in private and a different way in public. And so like an example of a bodily act that's not so kind, this is a very minor one, but today I was driving in a way that made somebody angry, and there was a bodily act. So you can imagine what they did, what symbol they used to express their frustration. And I just laughed. Some years ago, I would have responded in kind, but I've been practicing loving kindness. And the sutta goes on to talk about verbal acts, like how we're talking to others, right? But also how we're talking to ourselves. You know, I'm so much kinder to myself now. I meet myself with so much more like grace and gentleness, and like lots of, it's okay, dear ones, you know, it's okay. And this is a possibility, you know. So as I've been teaching about ways into loving kindness and ways into meeting our suffering with kindness, people have been saying like, I don't know how to do this. I know how to be nice to other people, but I don't know how to be nice to myself. And so one of the ways is with our tone of voice, right? With the words that we're saying to ourselves and to others. Another way is simply by attending to our direct experience in real time and dropping in the question, like, what's the most caring thing can I do for myself in this moment? And listening, right? And so we can look at it through this lens of our actions right? Our words and what's happening in the mind. And it also is like, it's good information, it's helpful information. You know, I know if lots of hateful thoughts are coming into this mind, there's something to be examined. And I know if I catch myself singing a song out loud or whistling, you know, that's a certain mind state too. And maybe there's some loving kindness or happiness present. And I want to pay attention to that too, right? Pay attention to all of it, include all of it. And then we're strengthening this thing called awareness, right? And we're having more moments of awareness, more moments, more opportunities to meet ourselves and our suffering in kind ways, and more opportunities to amplify when loving kindness is present, right? To develop it, right? Because we're giving it attention. Like when I notice that I'm happy and there's love present, it's uplifting. Or when I notice it in the world, you know, like let's expand this. So I gave this example earlier. I, was the day before my back went out, I was on this walk, or that I pushed it a little too hard, right? So I'm slowly walking up my street, and I live near a firehouse. And there was a young person, you know, like 7 to 8 maybe, on a bicycle on the sidewalk. And as the fire truck went by, they flashed the lights for this young person. And I was like, oh, that was such a sweet thing to do. You know, like it was just like that. They're like, oh, I'm just going to flash these lights. And, you know, the young person stopped. And, you know, it's like an exciting thing. Like, oh, the firemen and the fire truck and the lights. And it was a moment of just uplift and joy that I could feel in my body. And I just had so much appreciation for them to have thought of that. You know, oh, what a kind thing to do. They didn't have to do that. They could have just driven past this kid on their bike, you know. And the sutta, it's principles of cordiality. It's in the book of sixes, the numerical discourses of sixes. So there's 3 more things that create love and respect. The 4th one is generosity. Generosity, and the example that in the sutta that they give is like of sharing food, right? Generosity. We can think of many, many ways to be generous to others, but also, you know, to ourselves. Like it feels like a generosity sometimes to sit and just like take a beat, you know. And then the next one is basically around keeping sila, like doing no harm, keeping the precepts. And then the last one, the 6th one, is right view, like holding right view. And what is right view? In the Dhammapada, it says, Dhammapada, it says, knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard to the origin of stress, knowledge with regard to the cessation of stress, knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. This is called right view. So in our relationships, in our communities, externally, internally, in both, in public and in private, right? We can practice, like expand our practice in these ways through bodily acts of loving kindness, verbal acts, mental acts, generosity, keeping sila, and right view. And we come right back to right view of what? The noble, the Four Noble Truths, right? Knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard to origin of stress, knowledge with regard to the cessation, and knowledge of the way of practice leading to the cessation. all starting with like loving kindness and how we attend to, right, this stress and the wisdom that can come to that attending, that wisdom that can come from our willingness to meet ourselves right where we are with some kindness, you know. I think I didn't get this at the beginning of my practice, like how important this, and also how natural it is for the mind to incline towards that which is helpful, incline towards that which is wholesome, incline towards loving kindness, to compassion, to mudita, right, to sympathetic joy, to equanimity. And it's in that inclining towards that the sage is set to really drop into the deeper understanding of these Four Noble Truths, drop into the possibility of freedom, right? So I hope this like serves to, get us thinking about different ways in to ourselves and onto this path. And also, it's really what's needed now, like at this time. There's unbearable suffering happening in the world. So maybe that's enough for me for right now. And we have, I don't know, a little under 15 minutes. If anyone would like to share questions or reflections, really happy to reflect with you and answer questions too. If there's anything that I can help clarify, I'm happy to. Or you can share anything that was sparked for you. Or we could just send so much loving kindness to these squares and to these names. And just sit there loving each other up. That works too. Yeah, Mary.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you. That was very lovely. I had a very stressful week and it was just perfect for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Very
Mary.
beautifully done.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Keith. He says a beautiful way to describe relationship to knowing, to suffering, not just knowing it, but actually feeling it. Yeah. So lots of gratitude, which I appreciate. And also really open to any inquiries or questions. It's also like a way of knowing each other. John, did you have your hand up?
I did. I put my finger up for a second. How does this relate to having tea with Maura?
What do you think? How do you think it relates to having tea with Mara?
I'm just wondering if these ways of behaving are the ways that we might do that.
Yeah, I think next time Mara comes to visit, you should try it out, test it.
Okay.
Right? That's how we learn, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, let me see what happens if I apply this in this situation, right? Like, what's there to learn? What's there to know? How can I like invite this visitor in a way that doesn't cause me any harm or them? What happens? Right? Meeting them with kindness. Yeah.
I really feel like it's inviting insight, inviting understanding, and it's attending to something that might be a dragon to begin with, but if we attend to it, might be that princess. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah. We can only know by like actually being willing to engage with.
exactly instead of pushing away.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So in the chat, respecting the light and the dark, the dance with life and death. My dad's wife on her journey now and seems to be spinning faster than my heart wants it to be. Breath, something covering that. Breath moment by moment forward. It's like this moment. How does one keep living life to the fullest in the midst of grief? Yeah. Oh, Melinda, thank you so much for sharing. How does one keep living life to the fullest in the midst of grief? You know, I don't know how you're defining living life to the fullest, but grief asks to be attended to, asks to be cared for, asks to be known, right? And I think in the Dhamma, like we have this opportunity to turn towards our suffering and others' suffering, and that is to me, that is living life. Grief is a part of life, and living, like it seems to me in the Dhamma, like we have an opportunity to meet life just as it is, and sometimes it's full of joy, and sometimes it's deep grief. Right? And can we meet that with utmost tenderness and care? And notice if there's some pushing away, or notice if we like need to take a minute for ourselves, or a break, you know, if it's too much, right? Being by the bedside feels overwhelming. So yeah, I hope you take such good care of yourself, Melinda, and I hope that was a helpful response. So maybe we have time for one more before we dedicate the merit of our practice. Noemi, yeah.
I
Hi.
that that when you talked about grief and living fully, I mean, aren't you living while you're grieving? And oftentimes it's culture, it's about living fully, meaning you're out in the world and you're doing this and you're doing that. And grief is such an internal process. And are we living fully when we're inside, when we're doing that process? Because oftentimes it might not feel we're living fully, but we are living fully.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, when you say when we're meeting ourselves, when we're
Yeah.
meeting the internal, yeah, we're in full agreement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is like this. That's what Melinda was speaking to maybe in the chat, was like this idea of what like a life of like a living a full life means or looks like. And we have these times in our lives like that, we have these highs, we have these lows, and our practice helps us meet with the what we could call highs and lows. I don't really buy into that so much anymore, with some equanimity, right? Like, oh, this is how it is right now. There's a lot of grief in this body. It needs to be tended to, maybe internally, but also, there are ways that we can not have it not be so secluded. And maybe the tending to is saying, hey, can I go for a walk? It's reaching out. It's saying what might be of comfort. It's letting people know, actually, I'm grieving. I had this neighbor who her brother died. And she texted me. We had thin walls. She texted me and she said, you might hear me wailing. I just wanted to let you know my brother died. And then I was included in her grief and I could hold it with her, right? Like, that's the possibility. So thank you. Yeah. Let's dedicate the merit of our practice, of our time together. So appreciating our willingness to show up for ourselves, for each other, just as we are, with whatever is being held, whatever is here to be known and to be understood and to be cared for. So may the benefit of our practice first be for ourselves, our own awakening, our own access into this thing we call loving kindness or metta, access into insight into our suffering and freedom from suffering. And then may we share this goodness with all beings everywhere without exception. May all beings everywhere be safe and protected from all internal and external harm. May they be peaceful and happy. May they be as healthy and as strong as possible. And may they be free. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for your kind attention and your willingness to check out the Dhamma with me this evening. Yeah, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thanks, Naomi.
Thanks,
Take
Victoria.
care.
Thank you.
Victoria.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You're welcome.
Example,
Thank
look at
you.
her background compared to
Thank
his.
Take
you.
care.
Thank you,
Bye.
Victoria.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Victoria.
Take care.
Victoria, and thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone.
Bye.
Yay.
Goodbye,
you.
all.
Goodbye. Good night. Be well.